Spurs have agreed a fee. It's done. Advanced talks, way. And I had to do that thing of coming in and saying, no, not yet. Not yet. We're not there yet. And, reports that a fee have been agreed, wide of the mark. And I don't even think they're at an advanced stage yet. What I've been told is that things are expected to develop early this week. I think I said was it Friday? I did a report possibly that said maybe the next 72 hours or so there was going to be development. So early this coming week, Monday, Tuesday, I think we'll see things start to kick on. And it's really interesting, the reaction. I just find it fascinating the way people react. So there are 3 different ways people react when I say, hold on, it's not there yet, calm down, kind of thing. There are 3 different reactions. One is, okay, fair enough. And that's probably the reaction you'd get from the man or woman on the street if you were talking about Tottenham. It'd be, okay, it's not done there yet. Twitter also gives you 2 other reactions. The second one is, you're so negative. And it's like, one guy yesterday, it was really funny, he was going, come on, be positive over signings. It's like, do you want me to lie to you? It's like, I can. It wouldn't do me or you any good. That one I find really fascinating, mainly because I think I've been really positive as well. I've been really enjoying Spurs, the whole Conte era. It's all exciting and there's money to spend in the transfer window. I'm properly buzzing about this transfer window. So I'd actually say negative. I'm really surprised at that one. And the third one, which is the one that probably makes me laugh the most, is people go, I was just saying what Tottenham telling him to say. So that's a funny one. And the reason that makes me chuckle is because it's not how journalism works. It's not. It's not how it works at all. And, I'm not, without being disrespectful to younger journalists, I'm not some work experience kid that has just rocked up and started covering the club. You guys know, anyone that watches my stuff or whatever will know very well my rule. My rule is 2 sources. Always to try and get at least 2 sources to confirm something. I would say that 90% of things that I write about or information I get come initially from outside the club. Like I say, I'm not a newcomer. I've been covering the club for 6 years. Been a journalist, next year for 20 years, which is scary in itself and makes me feel very old. So I've built up a very decent amount of contacts. I know lots of agents, management company of various players. I know lots of family and friends of players and things like that. I know people involved in football in different ways and people involved in different clubs and things like that. So I always found that quite funny. It's like, I don't know, there's this idea that maybe the journalists that cover Spurs, they're only told to say what the club told them to say. It really doesn't work like that. Even I'd say, when I talk about people within the club that I'm talking to, that's not like Spurs press or PR people. Once in a while, if there's something, what would it maybe be over? Maybe something quite general. Maybe just confirmation of a timing over something, like a new contract that's about to be announced, or things it's more general stuff. That's maybe when you go and you get that second source or second confirmation from the club in that respect. But mostly, when I say within the club, it's different people within the club who don't have much of an interest on whether it's spun in any way, I suppose is the best way to put it. And also, I'm quite a cynical older journalist. If anything's been spun, I'm pretty much will know that it's being spun and things like that. But like I say, I think the key is that the bulk of the info that comes in, and this is, I'm talking about myself, and I'm actually talking to journalists in general, comes from elsewhere. It comes from agents, managers, PR people for players, friends, family of players, everything. If we're doing our jobs correctly, which there are so many terrific journalists out there, we are speaking to everyone involved. If there's a transfer deal, we're looking at both sides of it. Well, there's 3 parties, isn't there? There's the club that want to buy, the club that may or may not want to sell, and then there is the player themselves, and we go to every part of that. So I must admit, it always makes me chuckle a little bit when they say, "He's telling him what the club's telling him to say." No, the club aren't probably interested in what I say whatsoever. The only times they'll be interested if I say something that really annoys them and they get upset about it. That's probably, and that is, to be fair, that's quite rare. I used to get, in my first season, I got a few tellings off, but I don't really so much anymore. I think, though, that that's a sign of maybe of Spurs growing as a bigger club. I think when clubs are a little bit, not small time, that's not the way to say it, but when they're a little bit kind of lower down the ladder, every little bit of news that goes out there is quite important. It's quite important. They're very bothered about how they're reflected, any negative press, things like that. But I do think when they hit the big time, when they reach the elite, there's less of a caring what people say about you, unless it's something really awful, absolutely a terrible stain upon a slur upon the club kind of thing. But I think that's more of a big club mentality. So yeah, it doesn't work like that. But I found it funny because I saw a couple of those after the Jed Spence things, and I get it. People want transfers. Of course they do. I want transfers, and I get that. I get when people really do. They take it to heart. It's almost like he's just trying to play down our expectations. And it's like, well, no. Because the Jed Spence thing, I reported that. And yes, there were other outlets that were saying it was done, it was almost done, it was advanced, whatever. And yes, I was saying, hold yourself, it's not really. And then obviously the Middlesbrough journalists started to really start digging around their end. And of course, then you started to see the stories, I think yesterday, from the Middlesbrough reporters saying, there's nobody's made a serious bid, and there's no advanced talks with any clubs over Jed Spence, and that's what it is. It's like you can choose who to believe, of course you can, and that's absolutely your right. And all journalists, like I've always said, things will change with your information. So something you say 24 hours at one point, 24 hours later, can seem wrong because circumstances change. And that could be the same with Jed Spence. Quite frankly, I could have said nothing expected, developments within 72 hours, nothing right now. And within 24 hours, maybe Spurs would have made a decent-sized bid. And everyone would maybe go back to the original tweet and go, It's like, well, no, because it's at that time. So yeah, sorry. I just like to explain that because I do find that always really interesting. Just to try and give people a little insight into how journalism works, and hopefully that's what I try and do with these videos. But yeah, back to Jed Spence himself. Developments are expected on his future, maybe Monday, Tuesday, early this week at least, is what is expected.